Hello and welcome along to the NUFC 360 podcast. I'm Stuart. I'm here along with our usual crew, Matt, Max, and Joel. But we don't care about them at all tonight because we have a special guest in footballer Isaac Hayden. Isaac, thank you so much for joining us on what is hopefully going to be a really useful and worthwhile pod.
No problem at all. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure. I'm only messing, gentlemen. I do, of course, care very much how you're feeling, which is on brand for this podcast. Joel, I'll start with you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, spot on. How are you, Stuart?
Good, mate. You always ask me that, and that's very good. Yeah. And again, on brand for what we're going to talk about. So thanks very much. Matt, how are you, mate?
All good, thank you. All good. How's everybody?
All good. All good. Max, what about you?
Yeah, I'm really good. I saw my fellow countrymen score at the weekend, so I'm feeling really good.
Nice. How is Sweden? Is it snowy? It's very snowy here.
It's very rainy right now, so it's not so nice.
My assumption is it's just always snow in Sweden. That may not be fair.
Yeah,
yes, thanks
pretty much.
That's good. Folks, thanks very much for those watching along. And please get your comments and your questions in with anything that you would like to talk about, you'd like to ask Isaac or us or anything like that, or you just like us to talk about or suggest. Producer Mark is here in the background, beavering away as usual. He's on the screen actually, sorry. He's going to help us out and throw some links up there as well that are going to be really pertinent to what we're going to talk about. Guys, it's a bit of a different one. This is the Be a Game Changer pod, so it's not our usual ramble about NUFC and what used to be struggles and is now all the loveliness. We're talking about a different kind of struggle. We're talking about mental health, which is something can be a bit daunting, but of a difficult subject for many, especially many men. One thing that we're aiming to do just tonight is to try and remove a bit of that stigma around mental health. It's not going to be for those involved in the pod, tell me your deeper secrets and worries. It's more just about exploring the fact that mental health is an issue that affects us all. Isaac, as a professional sportsman, your viewpoint is going to be extremely useful and obviously different to ours, although I'm sure you'd agree that footballers, just like all the rest of us, experience these things and these mental health issues. Tonight's about talking, which we're very good at. I want to talk about something that increasingly affects either ourselves, our families, or the people in our communities. The Be a Game Changer campaign launched in February 2019, and it's used Newcastle United as well to raise awareness of mental health around people in the Northeast, but obviously that extends far beyond that as well. We're going to jump into a few questions, and Isaac, we won't pick on you, won't ask you a million questions. We'll try and spread out a wee bit, but I will start with you as you're our very special guest. You've had a well-documented injury recently, and we're chatting before the pod there. And I know many, like myself, read the very, very honest assessment that you put up on Twitter at the beginning of January with your injury. I'd be eager to know how much do injuries and fitness, or perhaps lack thereof, how much does that affect a footballer's mental health?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's massive, to be honest, because I think when I talk about myself, before probably March 21, when I had the first knee injury, I'd never really had. I'd had a long-term injury before. I'd had an ankle injury when I was about 19, which kept me out for about 7 or 8 months. That was my first big one. But then I was relatively lucky from sort of 19 to 26 to not really have anything. I mean, the seasons I played for Newcastle were quite regular. It was like 30 games a season, maybe on average. So my availability was always pretty good. Whether that was the manager deciding to start me or whether it was on the bench, I was generally available. Didn't really have many muscle injuries at all, touch wood, obviously. So I was just generally really available. So it doesn't really come into your head. When you're not injured, you don't really think about being injured. You don't think about anything. I wouldn't say take it for granted, but that's almost what it was for me, especially, I just used to turn up on a match day, enjoying the game, playing in the game, whether that was on the bench or whether it was starting, obviously enjoying the atmosphere at home, away games. You just think about it as playing football. And then it's only when you have an injury or a bad one that you kind of sit there and think, you miss it a lot more. obviously the physical or mental toll that it takes to get back from an injury is massive, especially if it's a big one. And as I said, for me personally, it was more difficult because I've had 3 back-to-back. So it's been a case of I've not really had a run since, I'd say, March 21 when I first got injured. I was out for 3 months, came back, did the whole of pre-season, played the first 10, 12 games of the season, then was out for the rest of the season. And then obviously come back, gone to Norwich, injured for the first 3 months of the season, come back, played 10 games, re-injured. So it's like, it's not just one injury, you know. When you have one injury, it's bad enough. But when you have sort of 3 on the bounce, it does make it a hell of a lot more difficult. But like I said, I've said before, I've said to other people, you just have to mentally be as strong as possible, make sure that you've got a lot of people to talk to. And to be fair, both clubs have been very, very good with me in terms of providing people to talk to, whether that's doctors, physios, teammates, teammates that are still at Newcastle now, teammates that are at Norwich. So I've been very lucky and fortunate that I've had a lot of access to people to talk to.
Is that something, that access to it doesn't have to be professionals, as in professionals?
No, yeah.
Mental health, but is that something that's relatively new in football or relatively recent, or has that been because you've been playing since you were very young?
Yeah.
Is that something you've always seen, or is that relatively new?
I'd say it's probably it's a little bit newer than before. I mean, when I was younger and I was breaking through, it was a lot less talked about. Mental health wasn't really talked about. I'm trying to think when I was 18, 19, 20, maybe it wasn't as talked about as it is now, which is strange because, as I said, it was, 10 years ago, I would have been 17, 18. So just trying to break through at that time. And I just think in general, the way that football is massively changed from 10 years ago. I think it's a lot harder for youth team players now to break into first teams, personally. Compared to when I was 17, 18, it was a lot easier for me to try, to play in the first team than it is for the lads now. Even at a big, even when I was at Arsenal, which is a huge club, I still had plenty of opportunities, and I was training with the first team every day. And when you're 18, 17, 18, and you get that exposure, whereas I feel like now it's so much more difficult because the squads are set at 25. There's obviously a lot of players, first team players that you'd say in squads. I mean, obviously Newcastle, for example, we got a 25-man squad, and obviously last year in January they had to leave three of us out. So that's 28 players. So then if you've got young players that are trying to break into that, it's very, very difficult. Unless there's a massive plethora of injuries, then you get your chance. It's very, very difficult, and you have to be a special talent to break into that sort of squad environment. I know obviously Elliot Anderson was a breakthrough player and is a very, very good top talent. But again, it's like a very slim chance. You only really get sort of 1 or 2 maybe per generation. I mean, you look at you think of Andy Carroll, the Paul Dummett, and then there was a big gap then from Paul Dummett to Sean Longstaff, Matty Longstaff, and then you look again, and obviously a few years later, you then got Elliot Anderson. So it's not a very,
quite
easy thing to do.
Yeah, the pool's not very deep at all. And certainly it's been something that's been addressed for a long time. It's a football and it's a hub, it really is. And yet there's a lack of players coming through. You'd said something a couple of times, or you mentioned it a couple of times about I suppose having that mental strength whenever you face some sort of negative impact in your career. It might be an injury or a consistent set of injuries, or maybe being left out of a squad, and you come across, certainly in what you're saying, as someone that's very that's able to sort of take those things and process them and deal with them and just remain strong. Is that something that you feel you're just naturally good at? Because some people are. If not, is there things that you would do that you feel help with those sort of negative things and negative processes?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say I've always been good at it. I think a lot of it comes with experience. I think if I was sat here talking to you at 18, my reaction would be completely different to as it is now. Because when you're that young, you know, 18, 19, 20, all you think about is yourself. You're quite selfish as a player. You don't really think about the bigger picture. You don't really want to think about what a manager has to do or the choices that a manager has to make as well. So again, I think it comes with experience. I remember one of the biggest things that Arsene Wenger ever said, and there was about 3 or 4 of us, I think, in the room when he was speaking at the time, and we were about 17, and he said that it's not the intensity of the motivation, it's the stamina of the motivation of the player when they're 17 or 18 that make it. So he was trying to explain to us that you can be as motivated and as mentally strong as you want with so much intensity, but if you don't have the stamina to keep going when things go wrong, then you never make it. And a lot of the lads at the time, we had a really good group, and a lot of us did make it, but we've seen a hell of a lot of players that were probably better than us or had great talent but never made it. So a lot of it's to do with, as I said, the mental stamina that you have. But over the years, I think I've just developed a thick skin, but also I think when you've got a really good group of players, as I said, it's difficult for me to really say because, you know, I was in the dressing room at Newcastle for 6 years. So a lot of the lads were there. It was a core group of players. You had that camaraderie, you had that togetherness because you almost grew together, you know. So I was 21, and then obviously when I left, I was 27. So it's quite a long period of your adult life.
It's like you're adulthood, isn't it? That's your
yeah. So you go from a kid almost when you're 21 to being a full-grown adult, and when you're in that same team, and I said under Mike and under the previous regime, there wasn't an awful lot of signings. There wasn't a lot of money that was being spent. So if it wasn't like we could go and buy players in to make it better or to enhance it massively. It had to come within, and that's where the group of players, camaraderie, the togetherness was massive, and that comes when it's good and when it's bad. When it was bad, you still had people to talk to. You had your teammates in the same position as you, so you had that ability to talk to people. And I think that's just the main thing, really, is having somebody to talk to. And it doesn't have to be, like you said before, a professional. It can be anybody. It could be a next door neighbour, it could be a friend, it could be anybody. And I think for me personally, when I speak to other people and about how I'm feeling or whatever it is, it takes the weight off your shoulders, definitely.
Mm-hmm. You've stumbled into my next question, which is brilliant. It's almost as if we planned this. And I was trying to think about your younger selves, because as you've acknowledged there, for your own self, we do obviously grow an awful lot, especially through those transformative years. And there are certain years that people, men and women, and particularly men, that suicide rates are higher, mental health issues are higher as well. It does seem to be that sort of 25 plus, or even around those figures. There's varying ones. I think everyone feels it. But as you're growing up and as you're sort of developing, when you're a teenager or very much younger, I'm curious, and I won't come to you first, as I'll give you a bit of time to think about it. I'm going to pick on one of the other boys. If you could give your younger self a piece of advice to deal with just life in general, I suppose, it could be the mental health aspect of things or just other things, the things that need mental health, fitness, whatever, what would that be? I'll give you a bit of thinking time, so I'll start in that. Whenever I used to be a teacher, I was a primary teacher for 10 years, and one of the things that I taught in an all-boys school for 9 years. The culture of that school, it was a lovely school, absolutely loved it, but the culture of that school was very much man up. That's a phrase that was used a lot, and I used it a lot as well. And it was the culture of the schools, what you talked about. Okay, you're going back 10 years, things weren't talked about, and that's something, if I was to go back, it would be to change that, to try and challenge that, to not fall into that thing, to try and have a viewpoint of not sort of suppressing or making stoicism and things like that, trying to make people talk more, supposed to have more conversations about mental health at a younger age, with younger pupils and things. So that's something I would change. I'm going to come to Joel. I'm going to come to you first. What piece of advice would you give to younger Joel? You are young. This is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 21 now, but
and I can really talk to producer Mark and Matt possibly here. So, Joel, your even younger self, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to sort of go back, if I could, and say that it's, it's a complete normal thing. That normalization of, suffering from poor mental health in certain stages is so vital, because it then opens the channel to then speak to other people. And then when you do open up on that, you'll actually find out that a lot of people, most people probably do suffer or have suffered at a certain point of their life or career and work, they have suffered a bit of poor mental health. And I've found, speaking to people and actually going, oh, you've actually been like this as well. It's just that like-mindedness between your friends, family, in discussing what's wrong, what you can do, and actually this is okay to feel a certain way. So I definitely just say, speaking out of friends more, not keeping it to yourself. Like Isaac just said before, it does alleviate a lot of pressure off your shoulders.
Producer Mark, welcome along. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you earlier. I forgot you'd be on. You're usually just skulking in the background. So welcome along. What about you? Advice for your younger self?
The advice would be that reaching out for help and asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Like I said, I've had experiences myself with my own mental health. I've been going through it for the last few months. I've also seen a close friend probably over a year ago suffer to the point that they did not reach out, and it ended up with them taking their own life. And that obviously affected me a lot, because I'm constantly racking my brains and thinking, could I have done something? Could I have reached out? Could I have spoken? And so you're always racking your brains and that's probably why we've done that now again. And it's yes, we've got the text number that if you don't feel strong enough to be able to speak, you can text the number that's on below. But there's many other organisations which you can reach out to. There's your friends, which you can reach out to, family members, whoever. There's so many people that you can reach out to, and speaking about it will help in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, something you picked up on there about the text thing, that's really important, because obviously we just assume picking up the phone, that's really difficult for some people. Like that, there are obviously mental health issues, but there are different issues that people can struggle with picking up a phone and calling somebody. And as Joel said about being able to be brave enough to do that, like men especially can be wired differently in that way. One of the most common places for men to have conversation with other men or their children, like that, if they're having a bit of mental health, is the car. And it's the car because they're driving. So one, they're doing something, so a different part of their brain is being used, so they're not self-conscious about it. And two, they're looking forward, so they don't need to make eye contact because they find that difficult. So it's just a really interesting thing that we're wired differently, and so talking can be even more difficult for us to do. So yeah, it's something that can happen. Matt, what about you? What advice would you give?
Well, I completely agree with everybody. Everyone's made great points. Probably say overthinking, especially when you're younger. I overthought a lot about unnecessary situations when I was at school, within groups, and just being in social circles. I felt like when you get older, you thought, why the hell did you ever think about that? And it's only like Isaac covered earlier, I feel like it comes with experience. As you get older, you realise that. But I was quite lucky when I was younger. I was surrounded by good people, maybe because I put myself by these people, and other people aren't as lucky to be in those situations. But if you're surrounded by good people who can have that positive effect on you, you can go to for advice. It does help massively. That was probably one of my biggest things when I was younger, definitely overthinking. And I think I still do it now at the grand old age of 27. I still do it, but not as bad as I was when I was younger. But yeah, I'd probably say that's probably the biggest factor for me,
That's me, Matt. I do that. Like that's literally all I do. I have 2 kids, so I do it even worse now. Just the overthinking everything. One is a cough. You're like, it's sort of like panic stage. It's always the worst case scenario. I think it's called catastrophizing. It's an actual phrase where if one thing happens, you just assume the worst. I think the best
like
thing
things that haven't happened yet.
Exactly.
Well.
100%. Like your brain runs away with it and you overthink everything. So I'm very much like that. And again, it's about talking and sharing those concerns. And I'm an oversharer. So I will just bleh and tell everybody things. It's finding the right person to speak to that, Max, what about you, mate?
Yeah, as I'm also quite young, so I don't have so much to go on right now. I'm looking forward to 25 and plus though now. Thank you, Stuart. It's going to be an interesting time. No, but I agree with you guys. It's especially when Matt said. I think during my teenage years, I've been surrounded by really good people, my family, my friends, positive, influential people in my life. So I haven't really experienced that many tough situations with mental health as of yet, and I also think that's because I have some good tools for how to get through certain periods where it can be quite tough. So that's important to try and find the right tools for you that works to progress and try to maybe look forward to something better, or this will end. It can only get better. Is trying to have that mindset, and I've been really lucky to have so good people around me for my growing up period.
Yeah, Isaac, what about you?
It's a really good question, to be honest. I think the main thing for me that I worked out, I probably didn't realize it until after, obviously, but patience. Patience is a really big thing, especially for me, in obviously playing football and growing up in the football industry. I wanted everything when I was 18, 19, 20, even when I first joined Newcastle at 21, I wanted everything to happen for me straight away. Like I was like, I need to be this player. I need to be, doing this, doing that, and expecting. I expected a lot for myself, and probably expected too much. And I was almost wanting everything to happen like now before it was supposed to happen. And it's just patience, really, understanding that there's a process, understanding that things take time, and that good times and bad times will pass. I mean, there was I think it was Robert De Niro, or someone was on a YouTube video, and he says, "This too shall pass," and it was a really big YouTube video. There was sat on a table.
It was Tom Hanks.
That was it, Tom Hanks. Yeah,
that was brilliant.
Yeah, and he said, "This too shall pass," and it was just basically just understanding that if you're in a really bad moment, it will pass. If you're in a really good moment, it will pass, and life goes on. But you're never going to be stuck in the same position and never going to be stuck in the same rut. And I think that's just something that I would have said to myself, is that there were certain times when I was really frustrated and almost like you other guys have said, like overthinking things a lot and constantly going around in my brain, what about this? Or what if this happens? And what if that happens? And I was almost not focused on the moment and enjoying the moment. I was more focused on, I need to do this, or I should be doing this, and I need to get to this level. And it's just understanding that, listen, I'm 19, 20, there's a process here, and, just having a bit of patience, really.
Yeah. They're cracking answers, everybody. Thanks very much. Isaac, this one's for you, obviously, as you'll hear. It's about, I suppose, dressing rooms and the culture within dressing rooms, and obviously what we traditionally view as what being a man is, and like the stoicism and the hard not talking about things, and that is changing in different forms of media and things like that. But in football, from the outside looking in, we just don't know if that's still the same. So in the dressing rooms you've been a part of, what is the culture when it comes to mental health and talking about things? Is it even talked about? Is it getting better? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so said when I was younger, it was, like I said, back when I was at Arsenal, it wasn't really something that was talked about. Obviously, it was a massive club and they were doing well anyway. There wasn't really that many bad moments or fan disgruntlements or pressure or anything like that. It was said it wasn't really talked about. And I think being 17, 18, I was just happy to be in and around it. But then I said, yeah, when you move to Newcastle and you have a sort of change of pressure, Premier League pressure, obviously getting promoted was a massive pressure, because I think that was a big moment for the club. It's not, a lot of people think about coming out of the Championship. It's not as easy as people would think, even with a bigger budget, or as big a budget as we had. You still have to go out there and do it. And I just think that the dressing room, from the moment that I walked in, obviously there was a lot of talk about the dressing room or how it was before that summer. So obviously the season, that relegation, there was a lot of talk about characters and how the dressing room was. But I must admit, as soon as I walked in the dressing room and walked into the team the way that it was, and we started getting going and obviously getting used to each other, it was a pleasure to be a part of. And as I said, during many times we spoke about it, we used to have a lot of team meals, especially during the tough times, where we weren't winning games, we weren't doing well. I remember there was a time when, I think it was the Rafa's last year, when I don't think we won in 10. I don't think it was that time. And we towards the end of that, we got together as a team, and Jamal Lascelles was a big part of that. I thought, to be fair, like as a captain from such a young age, I mean, he was only a year, maybe 2 years maximum older than me. And at the time, 23, 24, 25, to be captain of such a big club, he did a fantastic job. And as I said, he's still doing a fantastic job now as captain. Obviously, I know he's not got as much game time as he probably would like. But as a guy, as a captain, I've not really come across many that would be better than Jamal. And I said, we used to organise team meals and do things all together as a group, so that if you wanted to talk about anything, you could. And I said, it was a really open group, and I think that part of it comes down to the fact that there wasn't a lot of change.
Yeah,
it was quite a knitted group. You had players that had been there for a long time. You got players, characters. You got Matt Ritchie's of the world. You got Jamal. You had the Dwight Gales of the world. Like you had these are big characters. I mean, in football in general, because I said you come across a lot of players. You've been seeing a lot of players, and they're big characters. So when you share a dressing room with them, it's the camaraderie and the togetherness is always going to be there.
Okay, we'll cover one more question on this sort of aspect of this mental health, then we're going to have a chat about the football in a bit more detail. And I suppose it's for everybody. And again, I'll start to give you a bit of time to think. We've covered a wee bit on the importance of talking and the importance of reaching out, as difficult as that can be, either text or through numbers that we can put up, and what you can do to keep your mind healthy. Isaac obviously knows how important it is to be healthy as a professional sportsman. And what I want you guys to think about or sort of input on is, what's the one thing that you have in life that I suppose brings you a sense of calm and brings you either a bit of relaxation? Because sharing these ideas can be really useful, and it might be something that you mentioned tonight that someone watching either live or after the fact picks up on and helps them. And it can be literally anything. It could be, well, I'll get into, it could be anything you want. While you're thinking about that, I'll put Mantra down just to say thank you very much to those watching and putting the comments in. The Black Mamba, who's a regular viewer, thank you very much for your comments. I'm sorry I haven't been able to read them out. We're trying to squeeze it all in, but he's put an awful lot of comments down there that are all excellent points. One particular one, relevant one, is about Gary Speed's passing, obviously, which he said is a watershed moment in the game, which I would completely agree with, to be honest with you, because we have no input into what Gary Speed's like, but seemingly neither did his colleagues and what he was going through. So it just shows you that even high level footballers and professional managers can feel those things as well. In terms of what centers me, there are obviously lots of things, and what calms me down and helps me if I'm feeling difficulties would probably be, I'll tell you what it would be. It would be videos. So when I be specific, I mean ASMR. You might have heard of it, you might not have. They're YouTube videos. I hadn't heard of it like 5-6 years ago. Absolutely love them. They're just relaxing videos. There's loads of different ones. There's all sorts of weird ones and wonderful ones. And it's great. It's dead relaxing. It's very simple. You wouldn't think it would be something people are interested in. It could be something like someone fixing a clock, or doing a bit of woodwork, or it could be someone just chatting about their day. But it really normalizes sort of human behavior, and it just relaxes you, just calms you down, brings your blood pressure down. And it's something that I've sort of fallen into sort of watching quite a lot. Might be watching a video before bed or something to relax you, things like that. That and audiobooks are really important. Reading's really good, but you don't have the time, or you're too tired from doing what you're doing. Audiobooks are really good for me as well. I'll start, producer Mark, I'll start with you. What sort of things, or I suppose, what would you advise, or what helps you that might help somebody else?
It's not something that keeps me calm, but the one thing that sort of like is my distraction away from like any of the issues that I've had with my mental health is going to watch Newcastle play. As I said, it's certainly not calming, but yeah, maybe less so this season, yeah, because we're so seem to be going better. That's not a dig at any previous players, by the way, or management.
No, trust me. I completely agree with you. I can imagine what it was like before as a fan, from a fan's perspective, compared to now. I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, you can see from the stadium and the war flags, and them actually being allowed to produce the flags, have them there. It's a totally different atmosphere. So I get you with that.
Yeah. The one thing which actually helps me a lot, and it is a sleeping app, but it's also one of where it's got like a little bit of music, but it's got like the sounds of like the ocean, so it's got like the sound of waves on. It's also got like a brainwave on there as well, and it's there for relaxation. So it's sort of like you listen to it, and it zens you out. It just sort of like it helps clear your mind of everything.
Is that Calm, Mark?
There's to be honest, there's many different apps that's on there. The one that I use is just called Better Sleep because it's free. So you don't need it, and that's what I've used, especially on a night time, because the issues that I've had, especially with mental health, is sleeping. In that sense, and what that does is it just helps zone you out, so your brain's not overthinking. It allows you to just clear it. I've sometimes just been sat on the sofa and like I've zoned out in that, and I'll like come back 20 minutes later and I'm like, what's happened? Where have I been? Just because your mind's zoned out, and it's just that little bit of time where you just sort of like you're away from everything. The other thing, which just to help in more again, because I've went through quite a lot of counselling with this, obviously, for those who aren't aware, I've been off work since September with what was first classed as low mood, but then was diagnosed as depression. Is to have what's called like a 30-minute worry window, and that's if you've got any issues or anything that you're worrying about throughout the day, you just say, right, I'm putting that off and I'll deal with that whenever that window is, and you use that 30 minutes, and as soon as that 30 minutes up, you stop thinking about the worries. And it just sort of like means that you're focusing your mind, but it means that you're then not allowing it to overtake your mind, and you're just basically dealing with it in that 30-minute window, and then that the rest of the time you're not having that worry, so you're not allowing that worry to build up and get worse. So that's something again which is can be helpful as well.
Joe, what about you?
For me, I mean, there's a lot of things, but obviously I can't speak on behalf of everyone. But what I've tried in the past, there's been many studies on it, is actually just staying hydrated and it controlling your energy levels. So like there was this thing where you try and drink 5 liters of water a day, and I'd done that for about a week. In like genuinely like my energy levels, I thought they were normal, but then when you actually stay hydrated this much, you just genuinely feel happier in yourself. No matter, you could be having the most normal day, a bad day, but drinking all the time genuinely affects your energy levels, and it really does dictate on how you're feeling as well. And another thing for me is I'm a big music fan, but I listen to music pretty much as soon as I go up as a mood booster to try and set the day ahead. And then before, when I go to sleep as well, I also listen to music as I can unwind. And again, on what you said, Stuart, ASMR as well has helped me relax. Some of the quirkiest stuff you find on there, but it does. It's
Yeah.
weird, but it does the job, and it does relax you in a weird way. So that has helped. But I'd say the main two for me are just try and drink 5 liters of water a day. Honestly, do it, and you'll see the change. And listening to positive music.
Yeah, definitely. Isaac, what about you?
Yeah, it's again a bit of a cliched one, but music's massive for me. I agree. In the mornings it can set the tone, but also a lot of music can bring back thoughts or good memories. And I think walking the dog as well. I know it sounds really silly, but it's like, when I've had a bad game or a bad training session, or you feel bad or whatever, and you come back and the dog's there, the dog doesn't understand. He doesn't get that you've had a bad day. He doesn't have a clue. He's just happy to see you. So sometimes that's enough to just flick your mind, and you just think, oh, like his tail's going mad. He's jumping up. He's happy to see you. And you take him for a walk, and you put some music on, and then you just completely forget about any issues or anything that you're worrying about. And that for me was a big thing, especially because I said he's 18 months old now, and when I got him, it was just before I had the operation last December, so that was quite a big operation. So then when I was back up and walking and being able to walk around and be active again, it was massive for me to be able to walk him and to have that. If I had a bad day rehabbing or it wasn't going well or whatever, then I'd come home and he'd still be happy to see me. So definitely that.
That is a brilliant point, actually. Taking yourself to perspective, I suppose, is the thing. Max, what have you met?
Yeah, I've started to use some tricks when I started to work. I felt I started working as a student resource, so you have a lot of tough moments as that. I work with very young kids that had autism and ADHD, and in various moments it can get really tough, and you can feel really bad about yourself. And then I only had the simple thing of knowing that this day will end, this will continue, and this will be a new day tomorrow. And that has helped me through a lot of moments, especially during my working days when it's been really tough, even new jobs. Just know that it's gonna end. There's a new day tomorrow, and you get another chance, and it's gonna be better the next day. And if you don't, the next week might be better. Small things. It's like temporary fixes for something that maybe you need to sort of in a bigger picture. But for me, that works really well.
Yeah. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, again, I've been quite lucky. I've always kept myself active, and when my mind's active, I don't tend to sit and then overthink about things. So I've done a number of things. I have a lot of hobbies that I like to do. I'll go out, like Isaac walks the dog. I'll go out and go for a run for an hour, and I'll come back, and then I DJ, so I'll come on my decks for like an hour or two. Especially in lockdown when you had a lot more free time, I'd just go and do an hour doing that, and an hour doing that. So I'm always doing something that I enjoy. Because I enjoy that many things, I was quite lucky. I'll come on FIFA, then I'll get annoyed on FIFA and think, I'm coming off FIFA. And then I'll go on my deck for an hour, and I'll go, right, I want to go on a walk for an hour, even if it meant going on 2 walks a day or 2 runs a day. And another thing was my diet. Before lockdown, I stopped playing football just because I'm getting a bit older, and you tend to obviously put on a little bit more weight. So I worked on my diet a bit more than I was exercising a bit more through lockdown, and I ended up losing a bit of weight, and your mindset just becomes completely different and a lot healthier, and everything else has got a positive impact then, and it makes such a massive difference. So again, diet, but I think just the majority for me is just having a lot of things that I enjoy and then going to in between them. Like I love watching like series and films, and I can get, I could watch a full series in a day, and I wouldn't even think about anything else. I'd just be thinking about the series because you don't have time to think about anything else. So that would be for me.
Very good. Gents, thanks so much for that portion of the conversation, because obviously it isn't easy, so I really appreciate your candid responses. We'll chat a bit about NUFC before we finish tonight. I don't know whether producer Mark planned this, but it was exceptionally good planned if he did. It's the 3-year anniversary, Isaac, of your goal against Chelsea. I don't know if you knew that, but it is.
Yeah.
I obviously, as you can probably tell, I'm not from Newcastle, so I remember that vividly from jumping around my living room, trying not to wake my, at the time, 6-month-old daughter, going absolutely ballistic, silent screaming sort of thing. So I remember that very, very fondly. Do you have any memories from that match and that goal, or any perspective from that?
Yeah, it was special, to be honest, because as I said, I think there's been a lot more moments now, but I think obviously back then there wasn't as many moments to cheer at St James's as there is now. So especially beating a top 6 side or a top 4 side notoriously at home, especially in that way, is always a massive euphoria moment. I think as well, just in the context of the game, I mean, if I remember correctly, we had about 20% possession.
Yes,
it might have been 19%.
Yes, we did.
It was. It was 8. I'm sure it was 81% to Chelsea, 19% to us.
Wow.
So I remember we got battered, but we came away with the 1-0. And those sometimes, those matches are, it's almost like an FA Cup tie. You get battered, but you end up nicking one. So it was a crazy moment. And I said, I've got a few Chelsea supporters in my family and in my dad's friends and stuff like that. So it was a good one.
On the phone afterwards, straight on the phone.
Yeah, it was a good evening. And I said, I think it was that week, wasn't it, where we played Chelsea on the Saturday. Then we had Everton on the Tuesday when Florian scored the 2 goals in added time, wasn't it?
Right.
Remember that match when we were 2-0 down?
Yeah.
We got outplayed. To be honest, we got firmly outplayed again.
Yeah.
Everton were good on the night, and I think there was a screenshot someone put up. I can't remember what it was. It was of Ancelotti on the sideline, and it was 2-0 at 90 plus 2 or something.
Yeah.
And then they put another screenshot up, and it was 90 plus 4, and it was 2-2.
I was in London for that with work, and it was work lot, and I was watching. I had it on in the restaurant, and it was and it was about 92, 91 minutes plus. And I thought, I can't. Fuming, went to the bathroom, it came out, and it was 2-2, and I literally couldn't believe it. I thought the screen had glitched. I thought, I don't know what was going on. Pretty sure Mark will correct me on this. He is the expert on all these things. The Isaac's goal against Chelsea, our last goal before lockdown.
It was the last goal in James's Park before lockdown.
Yeah.
If my memory serves me correct, I also believe that was the match where we had the corner flag into the
It was, it was a Matt Ritchie special, straight into a poor bloke's nuts. So that was a funny moment. He always used to do that as well. I mean, I said he hasn't scored this season, but he used to always do that. It's his trademark. So
he's been here for a while. His testimonial could just be him against 12 corner flags.
Yeah. but the thing is as well with him is I can't speak highly enough of him. I really can't. Like not just as a player, because I said people forget obviously because he's been there a long time. But at the start he scored a lot of goals in the Championship, a lot of assists, and then in the Premier League he contributed massively to the first season, finishing 10th. And as I said, just generally. It's a big thing for me to say, but I honestly don't believe the club would be where it, obviously apart from the takeover, but for those periods he was massive for the club and for the unity in the dressing room, for the drive, for the passion. He was a huge part of that. And you always knew when Matt Ritchie wasn't there. I mean, there's a couple of times there was a season where he had a few injuries, had a few ankle injuries, and when he wasn't around the place, he wasn't at the training ground, it wasn't the same. And he created a lot of the culture at the training ground, especially in the dressing room. So as a guy, I can't speak highly enough of him. And as a player, as I said, his career speaks for itself.
It says an awful lot that the likes of Matt Ritchie and Jamal Lascelles, who you mentioned, are still around the club, especially Jamal Lascelles being captain. In any other situation, a player like Kieran Trippier comes in, world-class player, is used to being a captain and a leader, is the captain on the pitch. But Jamal is still that club captain, and as you've already acknowledged and told us, that must be because he is an exceptional leader and an exceptional influence on the dressing room. Same with Matt Ritchie. So yeah, I've absolutely no doubt, and I think I speak for most fans when they say that they've no doubt about that, about those type of players, that they must be such a positive influence on the dressing room, and that's why Eddie's obviously wanted to keep them involved. I wanted to ask you one question, and then we'll have a chat about the Fulham game, or so we quick perspective, and then we quick look ahead. So we're almost done. It was about Joe Linton, and it was specifically, it wasn't about driving. Don't worry. It was more about his position and that famous sort of move from where he played up front and couldn't score, and all the biggest flop of all time. All these things got bandied about. And then obviously whenever he got moved to centre midfield because of, I think it was Kieran Clark got sent off against Norwich.
Against Norwich,
had to be moved. Was there a conversation, or was there an acknowledgement around the club that they discovered something there? Was that something that Eddie had talked about, or was it just something that naturally progressed and we'll put you in there again because we'll have to? Was that ever acknowledged, or was there ever a discussion around that?
I don't think it was ever acknowledged as in people were talking about it, but I think it was just the case of how well he did. Obviously it was really, difficult circumstances with obviously Clarkey getting sent off after, I think it was like 9 or 10 minutes. So it's pretty much the whole game with 10 men. And I think it was just the way that obviously that the gaffer wanted to play, and obviously with Joe being on that, I think he was on the left-hand side to start with, maybe left wing, wasn't he? And Wilson was up front, if I remember. And I think he was the only, they were trying to figure out the best way to kind of get through the game, and it was the best with him in midfield, and he was unbelievable that game. And I think it was coming for me when I was, when you're training with him every day, you see the character that he is. It was definitely coming, because I think at the start of the season he had a few very, very good performances on the left-hand side. I remember Leeds at home; he was excellent. He was almost turning into a different specimen of player. I mean, he was always a big lad, but people always forget, like, you come from a foreign country, you come from Germany, and the physicality in the Premier League is totally different. You also have to take into consideration the way that we were playing. That's not what a lot of people think about. They think, he just played up front and he's not a striker. You could play him up front. Like for me now, like when I was looking at him, he could play up front now. Like in the team that there is now, he could play up front. He could play number 10.
He plays in the left wing now. He's back to where he would have been starting before. Yeah. He's extraordinarily effective.
Yeah, so he can play on the left. He can play number 10. I think he can play number 9 now. He can play number 8. You can always play in a double pivot as well. With someone, with a Bruno or a John Joe or a Longstaff, Longy, you can play there as well. But the main thing for me was that it was the way that we were set up before. It was almost like hanging him out to dry, because we were playing 5-4-1. It wasn't a 3-4-3. It was a 5-4-1. And with all due respect, before we had Rondon, he's a totally different kettle of, characteristic. He enjoyed that physical battle. That's what he was used to. He was a different type of profile player. So to get a player from Germany at 23, I think he was, or 22, and expect him to be that when you're shelling long balls and you're not really playing out from the back, it's difficult, And I felt personally it was difficult for him, and he was almost scapegoated to a certain degree. And there's also the fee didn't help, especially for a young player coming in when the fees like that. But I think you always could tell, because he always had a top mentality. He had an elite mentality where I think I spoke about it before. Like, he would always work hard. He was always in the gym. He was always physically trying to get better. He was always outside finishing practices, working hard. He never shied away. And no matter how bad it got for him, with media slating him, hype it, everything that was going on, he still kept going and going and going, and he got his just rewards. And I was so pleased to see it. And I think everybody else was, especially last year, the transformation, the turnaround, because he deserved it. And that's what you get when you work as hard as he worked, because obviously, as I said, fans don't generally get to see the day-to-day at a club and see how hard a player works. But to see him reap the benefits of that hard work and to see him playing how he is now, I mean, he's unlucky to not get in the Brazil squad as far as I'm concerned from watching the games. So that just shows the transformation that he's had, and it's all down to his hard work and his desire to obviously become the player that he is now.
I mean, he was last year's Player of the Year, which says everything you need to know.
Justified,
you know, and from where he's come, that is exceptional. Obviously, Newcastle are doing very, very well at the moment. It is great, and life's just really good as a Newcastle fan. Obviously, for everybody, I want to get, because we haven't had this podcast since the Fulham game, get your quick bit of perspective on the Fulham game. How did you find it and the result, and anything pertinent you want to bring up? And Maddie, I'm going to ask you first what your thoughts are on the Fulham game.
Is that me, Stu? Sorry.
Yes, Matt. Sorry.
Yeah. It felt very similar to the Leeds and the Bournemouth game that we just drew on. It felt very similar. They felt like they come with a good game plan. And to be fair, Fulham have been playing very well this season. Marcus Silva's got playing some great football. I do feel like they're probably overachieving slightly, but why not? You know, they're playing very well, and I felt like they give us a good game, and we struggled to break them down. It just felt like very similar to the 2 games previous. So yeah, overall, I'm happy. It just shows when we signed Isaac that you're bringing in these players to do exactly what he did. I noticed his movement. How often do you see players getting in late on the edge of the box like that, or getting inside the box, when the amount of times we've been screaming about getting involved, anticipate that the ball's going to go in, and it did, and that's why we spent the money on a player like that. You know, it was almost like you spend that money on a player and he's doing exactly what you bought him to do, and it just feels great. You know, even when we're not playing great and we're winning, you can't ask for more, can you? I feel like we're probably going through our spell of not playing great, and we're still, getting results and getting points on the board, and I can't wait until we start flowing again like we were probably a couple months prior.
Sign of a very good team. Max, you were extremely excited in the WhatsApp group when your countryman scored. What were your feelings on the game?
No, it was like Matt said, it was a really locked game, and it reminded me a lot of the Leeds and Bournemouth game. And I was getting frustrated because we didn't seem to get the ball in the net. And when I saw Isak was coming on, I was really excited to see how he was thinking about playing him and Wilson together. Some people have suggested he can play as a winger. I have always said he's not a winger. He's not a winger type player. So for me, it was really interesting to see, and to see him fall as a 10 or false 9. I don't know what you want to classify it as. Really worked to his strength, because he's really good with the ball at his feet. Not maybe the physical side that Wilson is really good at for being a small guy. He's very strong. Isak is not that yet. He might bulk up maybe during the summer when he gets the full preseason. But just to see him also switch out play to the left and right and combine with the other players is something we haven't seen yet, and that was really exciting for me, and also shows that we have another weapon in our locker for games like this when it's really tight, and we might need something different, like an Alisson Maxman or an Alexander Isak, just to give us the key to score. And he did this time, maybe much because thanks to Wilson's hard work, but he has to be there for the goal, and I think it will do a world of good.
Joe, I'm going to ask you a question instead. Can Isak and Wilson play together?
Well, on that evidence, I mean, I know Isak was slightly behind Wilson, but they combined great, like in such a good manner for the last, 20 minutes-ish of that game. Obviously, I think Newcastle have developed an habitual style of play with playing 4-3-3, and I think it would be a really bold move by Eddie Howe if he was to change that, and then into like a 4-4-2 or just a 2-striker formation.
It was 4-2-3-1, I think he was playing.
Yeah, it was 4-2-3-1 that we played. He was playing in the 10, but I do think that now grants the possibility of, if we are chasing a game, which touch wood, we're not that much this season because we tend to be in control. But if we are chasing a game and needing a goal, it's clearly a possibility that Eddie Howe will go into that formation again. Or even play them up top together in like a 4-4-2. So yeah, I mean, I just thought when Isak came on, he looked sharp. He looked a lot fitter than he has been in the past. He was making runs. I think he needs to ask for the ball a bit more. I mean, I think that'll come with confidence as he develops as a player and plays more for the club. But I do think he suited that number 10 role really well. Kind of in between the midfield and the strikers. But yeah, overall, I think the game it was a typical sort of. I think we've developed this thing of recent of controlling the game, Longstaff missing a chance, going into half time drawing, and then finally, seeing out the game and scoring later on. But at the end of the day, it was another good performance, and I was really glad to see Isak obviously get. I think that's his 3rd goal in 4 games now. So despite his injuries, he's starting off with a really good ratio, and I can only hope there's more to come from him.
Here. Longstaff's my man of the match. Yeah, I thought we were
Yeah, he was.
He was excellent.
Like,
he was excellent.
Yeah.
He was very, very good at that.
He was really good. Isaac, what your thoughts on it? Who was your man of the match, or what were your thoughts?
I completely agree with you. I thought Longy was exceptional. He plays one of those positions in midfield where he doesn't always get the credit. People don't always see exactly what he does.
Joel.
No.
He's honestly, I'm telling you now, he's vital. He's vital for the team in terms of what he does. The distances that he covers, the ground he covers is ridiculous. The tracking back, it's the covering of positions when players are out of position. He's got good quality on the ball. His passing is always tidy. I said his dual win ratio is very good. He's physically good. And I said, personally, I think it's a matter of time for him to score goals. I really do. Yes, okay, he's missed chances. I understand that. I've seen the games. I watched a lot of the games, and I know he's missed chances. But for me, he can finish. He can score. I've seen it many a times. And sometimes it just takes that one shot to go in, and then the floodgates will open for him. And I do really think, especially this season when I've watched him, he's got in the box a lot more than he has done previously. And personally, I think it's a matter of time before he starts scoring goals, especially from midfield, because he's definitely got the ability to. And as I said, I was just pleased to see him play as well as he did on Saturday. And I think the big thing with Longy as well is his durability. He plays every game, whether it's Cup, Premier League, whatever it is. He plays Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and he's playing with the same intensity. And to be like that and as durable as that is a top top level player to be able to do that.
You saw what under Rafa when he was and being linked with £50 million moves, and then obviously it went downhill a wee bit because of injuries and other things. You're starting to see that player come back. I think
he's still only 25 as well. This is what people have got to remember. He's still only 25. He's not even in what you would call the prime of a career. So he's still learning the game. He's still obviously going to have massive improvement. And the big thing, he's got one of the best coaches in the Premier League to learn from and to develop with. So for me, I think he's only going to get better.
I hope so. Mark, I'm not going to ask about Fulham. We're going to finish off with what we always finish off with, and you're going to go first. Looking ahead, Crystal Palace, Saturday tea time, 5:30 away game. Crystal Palace are currently 1-0 down to Manchester United, which is bad, good, question mark, don't know. Don't want them to win because they'll be up for it, but then also don't mind United win because they'll be ahead of us. So what a lovely problem to have that we're looking at Man United and not other teams down there. What would your prediction be for Saturday?
Well, Stuart, you should know me by now. I never ever do predictions.
Negative.
The one thing which I wanted to just pull Joel up on, yes, you might be focusing on the second half shot, which I was annoyed at, but you're also forgetting the first half chance where if it hadn't been for the tackle, it's likely Longstaff would have scored that, because it was a hell of a play. It was basically doing the Mickey move, in the box, which we're known for. Bruno passes it in, and then Mickey does the run on. But that's the one, and I've actually noticed more so. You've got that sort of partnership between Sean Longstaff, Miggy, and Trippier. Those little three, that triangle there, they're working so well. also to point out, it was Sean Longstaff who put that exquisite ball in for Wilson to then knock it on to Isak. I got his name right, unlike Matt. I got his name right, Matt. Yeah, I know how much of a stickler you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The one thing which I will just pick up on that is the atmosphere was that quiet on Sunday. I could hear Nick Pope's instructions to the players.
Really?
Where he was saying
Sunday, it's not Saturday. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff. Is that would be the norm as someone that goes?
I think it's because it was a 2 p.m. kickoff, but I also think it's probably that we're still a little bit exhausted from Tuesday. And we took a little bit of a while to get over that one because that one was a cracking night in that one. Yeah. And then we've got to do that all over again in a couple of weeks' time on a Tuesday. But yeah, it was just a little bit. I think it's because it was a Tuesday and stuff like that. But the one thing which was great for me because I actually could hear him in he's so helpful of the defenders. Like, when Shaw gets the ball, he's like turn. So he's basically telling them that they've got the ability to do that. And it was just so good. I also just need to point out the what people have called it the shithousery. When Nick Pope sprinted over to Mad Dog. I think he said 2 words which will probably go down.
Yeah.
He then sprinted a little bit slower and then went down so Bruno could get the treatment without having to go off. And then the alleged scuffing of the penalty spot by Callum Wilson to allow Mitro to slip in and hit it twice.
It was how long they took to allow him to take the penalty. There were 2 balls on the pitch at one point because someone, maybe Murphy, brought a ball on from somewhere.
Leeds did that a lot. Yeah. And can I also just point out, because I know Isaac has mentioned about Lascelles, 2 of his best performances for us have probably been when he hasn't played, and that was, I think, both the Arsenal and the Chelsea game where he obstructed the throw-in from being taken quickly and resulted in a yellow card, which it's perfect, but I think it shows his mentality aspect of the fact that even though he's not on the pitch, he's still wanting to fight for the team and that and do what we do to get a result. And if it means him getting a yellow card by delaying something, he's quite willing to do that. The only thing which I will say probably helps us a little bit is I think Palace are now missing is it Joachim Anderson, who's out injured for a while?
Yeah.
And he was probably
or is that recently or
no, it was recent. I think it was just news that it came out today, so he's not playing today, but he was probably one of the better players that we'd seen when Palace came up there when we should have won, but
interesting.
A certain VAR official decided to disallow a perfect goal, to be fair, but
it was perfect.
But we'll not work too much into that one.
Are you going? I'm going to push you for a prediction. Are you going to give me one? Go on.
Yeah, it'll be on Sky at 5:30.
There will be a game on Saturday.
The prediction is I will be watching it.
Fair enough. Cool. Put him out of his misery. Give me a prediction.
I mean, historically, they've been fairly tight. The last 2 have been goalless. Obviously, we're winning on penalties, and then I think the ones before that have been 1-1 draws. So again, I don't think there'll be too many goals, but with the form Newcastle, the form we are in, I'll go with a 2-0 victory. And I think Wilson, a goal's coming for him. I think he was unlucky not to score last game, and we'll put all trust in Isaac here and say that Longstaff will also bag one. So,
yes,
yeah.
Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I think I read as well. They've only won once in the last 5 against Palace, Newcastle. So, whether that's right or wrong, I'm a bit more confident now that what Mark said just as well. I read earlier that Anderson's out because he's a big player for them. I've noticed he's a bit of a. He's always at the referee throughout the game. I've noticed every time I watched him play. I don't know if Isaac's playing against him but
he's got a great passing
range. He seems
range.
to be on at the ref, so that he could be.
He's a good player. He's to be fair, he's got a great passing range.
So hopefully.
Where was he at? I can't remember. He was at Fulham, wasn't he, before?
Yeah,
that was it.
He was. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so I'm a bit more confident that he's out. But like Joel said as well, there's not a lot of goals in this game, so I can probably see. Well, the fact that we have got the best defense in the league, I'll probably go with like a 1-0 to us.
That's fine, by the way, as well. 1-0 for me as well. I don't think we'll concede. we don't do conceding goals anymore. It's just not what
We
we
don't
do.
concede anymore, do we?
And I think we might nick a goal.
What's this thing you say about conceding goals?
Goals are whenever the ball goes in your net. Doesn't happen very often.
I haven't seen it at St James's Park since
It's
Brentford.
fine. Don't worry about it. It's other teams have to do with it. Max, what about you?
Yeah, I'll go for my usual 1-1 draw. It seems to be working it's working this far, man. So I'll keep doing. I would keep saying it.
I actually don't think you might be far off her, to be honest.
No.
Any away game in the Premier League is exceptionally difficult. So, well, we'll see. And Isaac, what about you?
Yeah, the Palace is always a tough place to go. It's just a tight stadium. To be fair, their fans have always produced a good atmosphere. Like you said, the results that we've had in the past, and especially this season, have always been very, very tight draws. But I think that they'll nick it this weekend. I think that the confidence, especially taken away from last weekend, winning it so late, and also I think the big thing as well is with Palace playing tonight is a massive, difference. Is that obviously the Newcastle have got extra days to prepare, and Palace have got less recovery time, so should be fresher at the weekend to.
I thought the same thing with us facing Fulham, but Fulham were like really, really good, and as far as I would say, probably one of the better sides we've seen at St James's. So I was confident because I was going, well, they're playing on Thursday, it's fine, but yeah, sometimes it doesn't. But that might different squads, Malcolm might have them all up here, and a bit like what we have, with Eddie, he's got them conditioned so that they can sustain the fitness aspect of it. Yeah, I
think it's also the confidence as well, isn't it? Like they've obviously beaten Chelsea. So they're already buzzing, and then they've come to St James thinking, I can get another result here. I think if Palace, what's the score? 1-0. I think if Palace lose tonight, is it at Old Trafford?
No,
it's at Selhurst.
It's at Selhurst. Oh, okay. I think even said with a loss, it's again confidence gets a hit. It said I don't know what their recent results have been like. They won before this game.
They're in a poor run.
They've won only 2 out of the last 11 matches.
Yeah, and they were knocked out of the FA Cup by Southampton.
Yeah. So I said they're not in great form either. So all those put together, hopefully get the 3 points.
Yeah, I think
just one question which I've got for you guys. Rather than last season when we were looking at which of the relegation rivals we were wanting the results to go for, tomorrow it's Man City Chelsea.
Yeah.
Which would you rather Man City win or Chelsea?
I'll go first. Chelsea. They're one of our rivals for top 4. So Chelsea aren't. So Chelsea can win for all I care. What about you?
I would rather Chelsea because I said they're sitting 10th in the league. So I'm like, points wise, they're not close enough that realistically a win would put them close to us.
11 points behind us, Chelsea.
Well, exactly. Wow. But then you'll look at it and you're going, if Man City win, they're 4 points ahead of us. If they draw, then for the same amount of games, we're only 1 point behind Man City, and that's like nuts to see. I know we're a little bit further behind Arsenal, who are having one heck of a season, and I'm sure Isaac's secretly happy about the form of Arsenal. Obviously,
I was going to ask him that,
being from there, but
I was going to ask him that. I suppose just for Isaac, do you think? I mean, it's not whether you can. You clearly can. They've been exceptional. Do you think Arsenal will win the league this year? Who do you think will win the league? Basically, is what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I said if it wasn't Newcastle, I said that they're still in the top. Still have to sit there and think that they're still in with a shout because anything can happen, especially in that top 4. They're still in the race. But if it's not going to be Newcastle, then I said Arsenal. They're the team that I supported ever since I was a kid. I made my debut with Mikel in centre mid.
Wow.
First of a professional game.
Oh.
So, do you know what I mean? So, it's mad to see, obviously, how well he's doing and how his ethos in the game and the way that he sees the game and the way that he gets Arsenal playing is amazing. So, I said I've still got loads of, a lot of staff there is still there. So I said it would be amazing to see them do that, especially because it's been so long since the last Premier League title, and was it the Invincibles 2004? So it'll be amazing to see them win the league, really. So
yeah, anyone but Man United for me.
Well, Manchester United, with the result as it is now, they're now 6 points behind Arsenal.
Yeah.
Arsenal do have a game in hand, but it also means they're now 2 points ahead of Man City. So obviously we've dropped to fourth, Man City have dropped to third, and Man U are currently in second.
I think that's how it'll end up, top four, the way it is. Like, it will be fourth, maybe. I think they'll be in there. I think Arsenal will win it. But anyway, look, we'll over the hour mark here, lads. I just want to wrap it up. Thank you very much to everybody watching. I really, really appreciate it, and all the comments and people watching, obviously, after the fact as well, for such a worthwhile and really important topic. Thank all of you for your candid responses and your thoughtful pieces of advice. I appreciate it. I'm sure there are people watching this at some point that really will appreciate it as well. And obviously, thank you very much to Isaac, special guest, because we know it takes a lot of time for these sort of things, and to devote your valuable time to things means an awful lot. So thank you very much. So yeah, that leaves us really for this evening. We'll be back next week after there'll be the match review. Patricia Mark will confirm this, I'm sure, at some point after the game, but we will be back
At some point
next week, hopefully back to the usual slot, back to normal, all back together.
It won't be the usual slot because we're facing Southampton on the Tuesday.
Okay, well, maybe do Wednesday then. We'll do a Wednesday one. Maybe we'll be back this time next week. We'll be back next week to have a discussion about hopefully 2 more victories, but we'll see from there. Guys, thank you very much, and have a lovely evening to those watching, and to you guys as well. Thanks.